Good evening, folks. Welcome back to Fleet Week. I love the unofficial bit of this show, which apparently is that I announce the time and then go on before that time. Last time I think I did about 5-10 minutes early. Today I've done it 50 minutes early. So if you actually arrive here on the time this program was scheduled, you will see like the last 10 minutes of it, which owned. Um, Luckily, it's going to go straight to YouTube afterwards. So hopefully many of you are watching it there now. As I speak, and by as I speak, I mean as you watched me speak from about an hour or two ago. I hope everyone is well. It's Forbidden Door Day, and there's much to discuss. We're not really going to be talking about Forbidden Door particularly in this episode because this is more about the week of AEW TV and a couple individual topics I want to explore. I think it would be kind of um, foolish at this point in the game, honestly, to talk about the pay per view itself because I mean, honestly, everyone with a podcasting pulse has given their viewpoint on this card. Just to give you kind of to put a bow on my coverage, um, obviously before the review itself, I'm looking forward to watching it. I think I'm gonna have a great time. It's not a card that like has matches that personally kind of make me go, "Oh my god, I can't wait." But it has a handful of matches that I say I'm looking forward to seeing it, and there's a lot of great talent involved, and it's a cool concept. It's going to be at United Center, great atmosphere, I'm sure. So I'm looking forward to watching. I'm going to be catching it tomorrow. I'm reviewing it tomorrow night, probably sometime 5-6 Eastern, I would imagine. So I'm looking forward to it, but it doesn't. It's not really my thing right now. This card, but God only knows, man. We've still got like 5 hours for the whole thing to change again. So I guess I'll say right now and keep it that way. But I do have some TV topics to get into. I appreciate the 20 of you that have joined me on such late notice. I hope everyone is well. I'm seeing some people in the chat. Doing good, Brucey Beats. Um, yeah, looking forward to it. All right. Let's get into some topics that I've actually prepared for. So we shall see. My God, Brucey Beats is going to the event. New Japan got me back into wrestling before AEW. Couldn't be more excited. That is awesome, dude. That is awesome. I hope you have a hell of a time. I think you will. Try and get on camera when Claudio comes out and do like the CM Punk thing, the salute. I want to be careful how I did that. You do the thing that crying fan did. You just say that and leave it there. This is the best way to put it, what Chris says, I think. Excited for it. Sure, it'll be fun. Not exactly what I expected initially. I agree with that. And, the blame on that goes to both a range of things, many of which is circumstantial, obviously. Nonetheless, let's talk Fleet Week. So Fleet Week is just kind of the week of AEW TV, and let's get into it. Now, obviously, the big actual headline from Dynamite was no Danielson and/or Okada. Both of those obviously are kind of linked to the pay-per-view itself, and it is what it is. Just to be totally transparent for anyone that hasn't seen any of my content this week, yes, I have decided it's Claudio. Yes, I will be mad if it's not him. Yes, I know that's no one's fault but mine. You get what you get, I suppose. But that's, that topic at this point, I think everyone's given their take, and it seems like most are going in one direction. Okada was on TV. He's on the pay-per-view. Awesome. So on and so forth. But I want to talk about perhaps the next headline, and in some ways, maybe the biggest, you could argue, I think, which is Christian Cage, who in one promo quickly reminded the wrestling masses. First, let me just say shout out to Hunter and Caleb for following. Christian Cage kind of stole the show in a lot of ways with his big in-ring segment. Now, I actually think AEW features a lot of good promos. It features some kind of lame ones too, but every wrestling promotion does. That's life. I actually think in-ring interviews, they aren't as prolific as I would like them to be. The format is very much just a rough outline, and the talent can make it what they want. But for whatever reason, I don't remember a bunch of just stand-up interviews like this. I remember Cody had one early that was iconic, immediately so. But I don't remember a bunch that were like blow away. So I was intrigued what this would look like in the hands of Christian Cage, who is obviously about as experienced with wrestling television as you can get. Has been doing this now for over 20 years. And the results were even better than I expected. I will be honest in saying that I genuinely had kind of forgotten just how great a heel he was. And I've even said it elsewhere this week in terms of I think people that sit here like myself with one of these microphones and talks about professional wrestling, I think we need to do a better job of bringing up this guy when we talk about some of the great heel characters. Um, he is not a guy who is revolutionizing the medium by any means. He's not doing anything that's groundbreaking you haven't seen elsewhere, which I think maybe is partly why his heel work goes under the radar. Um, in the same way, he's not very flashy with it necessarily. It's much like he's in ring. He's a guy who does the fundamentals and the basics expertly. But he is absolutely prolific in this role. And I think most interestingly, you're going to get the chicken shit that's become famed in kind of throughout Christian's career. And I think you saw that when Luchasaurus came out. But there was an edge to him here that honestly I think felt new in my mind anyway. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know his career as well as a lot of you guys do. There's definitely been a desperation to a heel Christian Cage before. But here it was more than desperation. He honestly came across as bordering on insane. I mean, the man planned for a year to take out Jungle Boy. He was pushing it to an extreme degree in terms of the content of his promo. And I think that's a really nice edge that he can operate with in AEW because, frankly, in his time in the business, the average pro wrestler has got smaller. And that's not a problem. That's not a criticism. But what it means is, by hook or by crook, somehow, Christian Cage feels like one of the biggest guys in the fucking promotion in terms of height. Am I wrong on this? He seems to tower over people. So he can wrestle a guy like Jungle Boy and kind of work as a bully, which is something I don't think he's been able to do at any other point during his career. And that's pretty damn cool to me. So he cut a hell of a promo. Now, one of the big kind of talking points I want to get into on this show is about the heel lineup in AEW right now with all of the injuries, right? And there's so much going on. And, we assume that Adam Cole, obviously, he's wrestling tonight. We assume he's back, and he's not just kind of filling in tonight and then going to be not wrestling again. So if we assume he's back, I think he's either 1A or 1B in terms of the top heel in the promotion right now on the active roster, right? So I think it's him and Jericho are kind of splitting that. To me, Jericho is leading the pack. But Cole has been in title programs and is now in again this program. So he has very much a fair case too. I think there's then a clear gap where there's a bunch of guys vying for that spot. There's a couple of guys I'm going to talk about later who are in the title of this that I want to get into in terms of their opportunity at this moment in time with so many injuries and so many different pieces moving. This kind of opening that's across the board. And then you look in Christian Cage's direction, who is not a Ricky Starks or a Swerve who you're looking to elevate. He is not a Malakai Black who you're trying to figure out the best singles presentation for. Quite the opposite. Christian Cage is just an absolute finished product, a polished performer to the absolute nth degree, and he's really a plug and play situation basically. And best of all, he's been there now for over a year, and frankly, it feels like with the way they've done the matchmaking, it feels like he's got more fresh matches than anything else. I feel like I've hardly seen him wrestle this roster, especially now that you've turned him heel. He has a bunch of matches. I mean, he's hardly interactive with a lot of these baby faces, honestly. And that is a huge strength when you're booking him on this roster. And I tell you, and we look at the heel lineup that I just mentioned. A big name who can still go, who's is incredibly confident in this role. Fresh matches, big matches. You've given him credibility in the last year and change. You main evented all out. So you're not having to shoot him through the roster here. He's ready to go. Christian Cage is an opportunity in a way that you may not have expected a week ago. Well, I certainly didn't a week ago. I thought this was going to be a program for Jungle Boy, and we'll see what happens next. This may be more than that, and that's going to require some vision. The challenge with this feud is elevating Jungle Boy, because that is a key. Let's be real here. Christian Cage is on his way to 50, and God bless him, he looks great. But at the end of the day, you do have to elevate Jungle Boy when he's back, of course. But you cannot cut off Christian Cage before he gets going here. There's an opportunity to do more than that. That is frankly a test of Jungle Boy, because he needs to be up to the challenge in terms of matching Christian. If they do promo segments, he cannot just stand there and get dunked on, because more and more of wrestling fans today, while his content may be crass, people will react a certain way to that, and it will kind of expose Jungle Boy. I actually am pretty confident in him. to be totally honest with you. But he has to be up to it, and honestly, Tony Khan has to be up to it in terms of doing something that serves both parties. You can have Jungle Boy come out of this as a winner in the end, but you can get an awful lot of Christian both before and after that, and that's very, very interesting to me. I really like the idea of Christian and Moxley as a feud, especially if Jungle Boy is out for a while. I also like this, the idea of Jungle Boy losing the first part and having to work his way back up. You just got to, do that balancing act. I just think it'd be a waste to kill this thing off, particularly swiftly. Big Franco, cheer 100 bits. Appreciate you, pal. I'm told that is very good. I've asked before what bits are, and I'm pretty confident in saying that is good. So thanks, pal. I appreciate you. So yeah, Christian Cage. I think the promotion desperately needs some new feuds and some exciting feuds. Christian Cage and Jungle Boy, that fits the bill for me. I'm excited for it. So there you go. All right. I want to look elsewhere. One of the other things that stood out to me on Dynamite. Orange Cassidy is back. We just talked about the injuries, and that's a big kind of plot line of this show, clearly in AEW in general right now. Orange Cassidy is back, and they desperately needed any kind of positive momentum in terms of returns. I'm a big fan of Orange. The live crowds love Orange. So it was great to have him back. It was noticeable his enthusiasm and excitement to be back. And obviously, this is his first match in nearly 4 months. He was in the Revolution ladder match. This was his first Dynamite match since Beach Break, which, if you were around back then on this platform, you'll know that was quite the event for us. There was news last night. I don't want to kind of spoil it, but there was some news that some of Orange's presentation will be changing here shortly. And I think when you consider that, and you consider the way he performed here and the way he's being positioned on Forbidden Door, whether it's the first or second choice, at the end of the day, he's wrestling Will Ospreay tonight, which is a big-time match on a show that honestly doesn't have many singles matches. So, and you combine it with, as Sharp 4 says, Orange sprinting out of the tunnel on Rampage. I think there's some kind of evidence just immediately that, like, they, I think internally it's very much not lost on them how big a moment this could be for Orange Cassidy to kind of reassert himself as a main event player. Now, I know people hate that and they scoff at it because he's a gimmick and so on. But look, lest we forget, 2 years ago, the summer of 2020, one of the biggest topics that we covered on The Distraction was, is he a genuine main eventer for this promotion? He was feuding with Jericho at the time, who's one of the top guys in the promotion, still is, frankly, but then especially. And I think the results were mixed. I personally like Orange as an attraction, as a kind of, unique outlier who the audience loves and you can kind of float around. I don't think they've done the best job of utilizing that way, honestly. I think sometimes they extended his feuds too long and they had him wrestle too much. But if you look at this roster right now, there is clearly a lack of depth up top all of a sudden that's kind of come around via about 12 injuries. And with momentum on his side as the returning wrestler and a chance tonight to what I believe could be the show stealer against Will Ospreay, we just may be heading back in a direction where that conversation I just mentioned is relevant again. In terms of where Orange Cassidy stands in this promotion, which is very interesting. As for his match on Dynamite, it was tremendous. It was actually my favorite match of AEW's week. I even preferred it to the Andrade Ray Phoenix, which I just love that match. With Ospreay and Aussie Open, Roppongi Vice by his side. He'd actually shared, I did a little research and it popped me. He had shared the ring before with the Aussie Open lads. He teamed up with Davis in a trios against Fletcher. And he also had a 17-minute singles match with Fletcher in Wolverhampton. Pop. In addition, this one caught me off guard. This was the first time that Orange had teamed with just Rocky and Trent. Previously, they had, I think, 2 8-mans with Chuck also on their team. It's been interesting seeing Roppongi Vice re-emphasized, obviously, in the last month and change. I don't know if that's a Forbidden Door thing or the kind of thing we can expect to stay. I love the team. I mean, look, bless Chuck. It's difficult because it always feels like you're slighting Chuck, and that's not my intention. A genuinely good pro wrestler, but Rocky, I think, is just fabulous. So I love the Roppongi Vice team. All 6 guys are great. The Aussie Open team, I was lucky enough to. I was unfamiliar with them when I went to, the Copper Box for what was that show called? Royal Quest, New Japan Royal Quest, and they worked the Gorillas of Destiny, and I was unfamiliar with them. I was unfortunately unfamiliar with a lot of these good professional wrestlers a couple of years ago. I kind of, head in the sand kind of deal. I was blown away by them live in terms of their physicality and their tandem offense, and they've clearly got a lot better in the last 3 years almost. And I think they've been great on TV. Like, I'm pretty sure that their New Japan runs are just getting going. Like, I don't think they've actually worked Japan yet for New Japan, as far as I know. Chat, tell me if I'm wrong on that, but I don't think they have. They've just done US stuff. So they're going to bide their time and hopefully actually get out and work these shows, because they're going to be a big help to that tag division, which is, you get what you got, I suppose. But if that's not the case, and then they've really sold themselves in a major way on these TV shows, because they've looked just ready to go. They've been tremendous. I think Ospreay's been great on AEW TV. I'm not sure I love a guy wrestling 3 times on TV before Forbidden Door, because I just think it kind of takes away from the allure. But it's no big deal. I've been happy to watch him wrestle, and I've really, really liked the matches. This trios match was tremendous. So there you go. Haven't been in Japan yet. So I think, I'd assume they're gearing up for that. And obviously that would be a big help to New Japan. It would be a big deal for those guys. So that should rule. All right. I want to talk about a couple of things here in our title. I want to talk about Malakai Black, who is a really interesting case, honestly. Let me tweet this here. Now, I'm intrigued by Malakai Black and Andrade, both, because to me they are very interesting comparisons. I think they've always been interesting comparisons, right? Because let's be real here. They worked for the NXT title in New Orleans all those years ago. It was now 4 years ago. They were both top guys at the brand at that time. They both had reigns that were, in a strange way, more memorable for DIY happenings. More so Malakai, but you get what you get. And they came into AEW within the same, I believe I froze there, but 6-week stretch, I would say it was across they came in, maybe 5. And they both were immediately overshadowed, through no fault of their own, by Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, and Adam Cole. And so they've been interesting to watch in that way. So this started Malakai wrestled Penta on Wednesday. He is headed, of course, for tonight's All-Atlantic title match. I wanted to do some statistics on this one, folks. I promise this could be interesting. It might not be, but I thought it was interesting. So Malakai Black has had 21 matches in AEW. His first was in August. First week of August against Cody. So I think that paints a picture in some ways, but once I get into these, I think this is interesting. His first 7 matches in the promotion were singles matches. Then he went into a stretch where, if you may remember this, you may not, Andrade and FTR were kind of tied to him in the weird Codyverse thing. Remember that deal? With Andrade and Malakai? Remember that thing? We kind of thought it was going somewhere. It wasn't really. They were just making a deal. It was weird. So then he went into that. And then he worked Pillman and Griff separately on TV. I think the Pillman match may have been on the premiere of TBS, is what I believe. I think it's January 5th. Since then, until this week, he had not had one singles match in AEW. Now, we understand why. To be clear, it's not me asking why that is. I'm aware, House of Black, so on and so forth. But from January 5th to June, whatever it was, 22nd or whatever, not one singles match in AEW. And I bring this up because I believe within these statistics, facts, nerdy points, I believe that there is evidence that, in fact, Malakai perhaps should win the All-Atlantic title tonight. I was listening very interestedly, I should say, to Will Washington. I was on True Hill Heat's preview show yesterday. I was on there, lucky enough to share the screen with those guys. And Will was kind of talking it through with Malakai, and he kind of used the Jade Cargill comparison, which may not seem natural immediately, but when he explained it, it made a lot of sense, where he kind of said, you've got them in a position where they are there to be challenged almost, Like, you've built them up with a degree of dominance that now you need to give them something. There's a prize alongside that, basically. Obviously, he explained it much better than I did, but just to give you kind of the idea of what he was saying. I know for an absolute fact, and even says so in the chat here, I'm very confident on the fact that Malakai Black loves doing the character work. I think he adores doing it. However, I personally believe that when you've got a guy of that talent and that popularity, it feels wasteful for me for him to have that few singles matches. He's too good of an actual pro wrestler to be wrestling one singles match, in a 6-month stretch, right? That's just my take on it. You may disagree, but that's where I'm at on it. And as a champ, you would give him a built-in reason, dare I say excuse, to wrestle TV main events, right? It's as simple as a babyface challenging him for the All-Atlantic title and him wrestling on the Rampage that week. It's as simple as Rampage, a babyface promo about challenging a guy and then the next Wednesday doing that match, wherever you want to do it. He's going to give you big matches. And talk of guys who have been there for a while and it feels like they haven't explored matchups. I feel like I've seen him hardly interact with a lot of the roster, And I'm intrigued by changing that with the All-Atlantic title. I think it could be very interesting. And again, I think there's a very fair counter argument, which is he doesn't need the belt because he has the House of Black thing, and not everyone else has that safety net of having, the kind of the character element, which is some guys they need to be wrestling to stay over. Malakai's blessed in that way; he doesn't have to. But I'm intrigued. Now, Crackerjack has a good question. He says, "Is this new title the best fit for a singles push like that for Black? I'd much rather give him the TNT belt currently. Guess that depends on what this new belt actually is intended to do." That's my answer. You nailed it there at the end. I'm not sure, but it all depends on the belt, right? Like if the belt is just going to be another belt on AEW TV, then it doesn't matter to me. It's the same deal. If it's a touring belt, then no, probably not. I think you probably put that on a kind of a pack style workhorse babyface. But if it's just going to be on TV, I think it makes a lot of sense. Brucey Beats mentioned the Dante Martin match, which I believe was last October, maybe. And I agree, like that kind of match and giving him a chance to be a character, but kind of add some range to how you can use him rather than being cornered in that way that I feel they currently are. It's been a year almost for Malakai. I think he debuted next week, a year ago. And I think he's had a strange run. I think it's been slightly frustrating. There's certainly been some very cool moments. There's been a couple cool matches. His match catalogue is not as spectacular as you would hope, especially in the singles department. But I think the numbers I just gave you and the facts I just gave you may make that kind of more clear. It's not criticism of his performance, just is what it is. It's kind of circumstantial. But he's floated around an awful lot. And there's been a lot of waiting for moments. I think the issue has been following up on those moments. And they've not had the best of circumstances in some ways with Phoenix being out and they wanted to do that Death Triangle match. And I get it. It's hard. There's a lot of moving pieces of these things. But I see this belt as being an opportunity to do something with him. If he does not win, that's not a big deal. But I do think the end game needs to be the same, which is that, I think you need to get moving in some kind of dynamic, direction with Malakai. Even if it's them just attacking like a true top guy, which honestly right now, they're not as loaded on as they were before, but they still have, for example, if in 2 weeks, say he loses tonight, if in 2 weeks House of Black jump Moxley, that would feel like a massive step up for them as a group, Granted, he probably wouldn't win that match, but at some point, who are you protecting? And that's what I wanted to kind of talk broadly about. It's in the title. You can get lost in protecting guys, right? And I think Andrade's kind of sometimes been a case of the opposite. But in Malakai's case, I think I'd rather see him winning 80% of a bunch of memorable matches than winning 100% of a handful of matches because we're scared to book him in any others. Now, again, only been a year, but I do think it's interesting. I liked his match with Penta a lot. His performance was excellent. On rewatch, I really enjoyed the match. I thought Penta worked really hard too, by the way. And I just thought it was interesting to explore him as champ. But again, the main point is let's get some matches out of Malakai. I know that he's not a guy who needs them, but he's too damn good to be kind of in the background as much as he has been this year. That's just my take. Quick thing, a couple of things from Dynamite I wanted to get into. Toni Storm, Thunder Rosa is tonight. Toni wrestled Shafir on Dynamite. I am intrigued by and have enjoyed the genuinely compelling argument between who should win this match. I like it as like a debate. I think it's a good, healthy thing for the division to have a sense of back and forth on who should or shouldn't win this match. And that's something the division has greatly struggled from or with. By the way, I love this. I like this. Someone pitched this before. Him going after Hangman, I think, is a really fun storytelling element. And you can have Hangman wrestle the other guys, and yeah, they're strong. I think the division has really struggled to put together like 50-50 big time matchups. And I get everyone's scared that, everyone's concerned about Toni losing again, maybe, or what that does to her momentum or her position on the roster. And it's like, I think, look, some must die so others can live, right? Like, I think there's something to be said for just booking these matches and giving this division the kind of push it needs. I don't think it helps anyone for Thunder Rosa to wrestle just a heel on this show that everyone knows she's going to beat and there's no heat in the match. Hopefully tonight you have a split crowd. Hopefully tonight you have the kind of atmosphere of a big time title match. I think you could. You certainly have a better shot at it tonight than you would if you put Marina, perfect example. Bless her. If she was the match tonight, it's like, well, yeah, because we want to protect Toni Storm. But to me, you're hurting the belt and you're hurting the division by doing that, So I think Toni can gain an awful lot in defeat tonight, which is what I think she should do. I don't think she should win tonight. I think people maybe slightly overestimate how over she is with the live crowds, to be totally honest. Rosa is actually very, very popular with the live crowds. Generally, that may have faded as of late. But for me, Rosa's not been able to do much in this reign, and I think it would be a shame if she so swiftly, took it off her here before she even got started. I think that would kind of be a step backwards in trying to change things. I don't think that actually helps the division, honestly. I agree with this totally. It would be better off for Toni to show she can hang, but only lose. If you switch, we're kind of in the same place. I agree. I think you land in the same spot. And again, after I just preached about overly protecting talent, the women's division especially isn't as deep, right? So you can't be too protective. You have to just make big time matches people care about and hope that it will lift, the whole kind of crew up. And I think this match should do that. I don't know if Rosa's working her Bruce because I know she's been booked for Japan, so I would assume not, beyond just the usual kind of niggles and such, but I don't know. I hope the match is really good. I think it will be. I always have concerns about placement. I know I shouldn't because, yes, you can work out of it, but I do think it's a real thing. I'll go to the grave believing that. I always will. Serena and Rose was tremendous, so I'm pretty confident. Big match for Toni Storm. My hope is that in defeat, which I assume it will be, she comes out of it feeling like she's on the right track because she can be a big time player for the division. I'm not as locked in as everyone else is, or not everyone, as some are, to her being like the face of the division or the centerpiece. But she can certainly be like a rotating part of that main event scene. I think tonight is a big step in that regard. Her match with Shafir wasn't much. It was better than Rose's match with Marina. I talked about this on the Burt. Marina, I think, needs to loosen up. I think they've really kind of frozen her out there by telling her she needs to be like a robot and she needs to be so kind of monotone. I think it's messing with her a little bit. Her transitions and stuff, she looks so rigid, But I thought the match was fine on Wednesday, so a step in the right direction. All right. Final thing from Dynamite, because he was a main eventer. And it was a strange one. The main event of Dynamite, I thought really kind of... Someone in my chat described it as a Road 2 tag, and that's a very smart way of describing it. It was, it was a good match. But, it wasn't memorable in any way, and it kind of... I think because they did the post-match brawl, it kind of just went off in the distance a little bit for me. It was strange. I when the show ended, I felt like I had no memory of it. I rewatched the show, and I was like, oh, this is pretty good. And again, I had no memory of it as soon as it ended. So it didn't stick with me much. There hasn't been much discussion about the tag main event, but I do want to talk about Lance Archer very briefly, who was the kind of spare man in that main event. And there's no shame in that. He was in there with three of the great wrestlers of the last 20 years, but he was the spare man. He, of course, is not like a regular on TV anymore. This was his first non-Battle Royal performance on Dynamite. I think TV in general since Wardlow, where he put Wardlow over decisively and emphatically, and that is commendable, but, also is kind of indicative of where he's at right now, and there's nothing wrong with that. He's an older guy, I get it, but he's certainly reliable and brings it, and I thought his performance here was strong. The G1 is very important within wrestling as a whole, but I think it's massively important for Lance as a performer. I am reminded of his match with Frankie Kazarian, which was his first match back, I'm pretty sure. And you could tell that basically it was an exercise in kind of getting his legs under him, which very understandable. Since then, beyond the handful, the couple extended TV matches he's had, he has not had a great degree of opportunity in AEW to have longer matches. Now, he has been working elsewhere, and I think he's been putting time in elsewhere. I'm not sure how long those matches have been going necessarily. I will say, though, it did stand out to me as I looked at his 2022 that he's headed to a G1, and while it is not quite as exhausting as it has been in previous years, that is going to be challenging in some ways. I have no doubt he's going to kill it, though. I mean, those crowds certainly have a respect and appreciation for Archer, which will be fun to see him soak up. I am intrigued by, though, what happens when he comes back. Is this a way, especially if he performs the way I kind of assume he will, is this an opportunity to reheat him in a time where you may need to, right? Like we talked about that Hill lineup earlier. There's no reason that Archer can't slide his way back up that depth chart. Now, here's the thing. You'd have to do an effort. You'd have to put a lot of effort in from booking side of things. You'd have to really emphasize him. You'd have to make it clear to the audience he can get big wins. Is that juice worth said squeeze is the question. I don't know, and I'm a big fan of Lance, but I'll be honest, I was talking about elevating heels in my head. He wouldn't be high up the list for a range of reasons, and very few of them are his fault. I don't know. I think he's in a really interesting spot on the roster, and he's very valuable even in the role he's in. But I have to admit, I am intrigued by the idea of possibly getting back up that card. It is interesting. Certainly. All right. Let's move elsewhere here. I like the Ring of Honor idea. This could be fun. Andrade was the big story on Rampage versus Rey Fenix. Everyone knew this match was going to be great. Of course it was. Just an absolute spectacle physically in terms of what these guys can produce and their chemistry and their stylistic clash. And Andrade is such a weird kind of hybrid wrestler, right? Like he can match a Rey Fenix in some of this stuff, and then he can just like whack him really hard with a chop. And he's a bruiser, man. He's very, very special. He had a pretty big week in AEW, actually. I'm sure not everyone here saw it, but on Monday on Dark Elevation, which was actually last Wednesday, but Monday in the AEW universe, here's with Frankie Kazarian on Elevation. It actually got me thinking in terms of this was really, for the most part anyway, and not to be honest, it didn't surprise me because he was wrestling Frankie Kazarian, but this was mostly like a kind of classical US TV match. And I was thinking about it when I was watching it, so much so that I had to rewind because I was just thinking elsewhere. It feels like we've hardly seen Andrade wrestle one of those matches on TV. Now, hold the phone. I'm not even, what the fuck are you talking about, Joe? Well, here's what I'm talking about. He's done some tags and multi-man stuff. I mentioned the FTR deal earlier, which ruled, to be clear. I'm not saying any of this stuff was bad. I'm just saying. And a lot of his matches, his big-time matches, that weren't just, C-show squashes, his actual TV outings, a lot of them were these kind of weird, like, spectacles, like these, like, bomb fests, These, like, physical kind of thrill rides where you paired him up with a guy you knew he was going to do some crazy shit with, like him and Darby, or him and Phoenix here, or him and Pac, where basically, for about 10 to 15 minutes, they just kicked the shit out of each other and did everything they could think of and put on an offensive showcase. Cody with the table spot. There's a great example again. There was the first Cody match was very much an old school TV match. It wasn't very memorable, but it was. And it kind of intrigued me. Like because he's such a varied, versatile pro wrestler, he's kind of been, in his own way, put in a particular spot in terms of what he can do in ring. And it felt weird seeing him just have a normal match with Frankie Kazarian. It was a good match, not blow or anything. And I can certainly see why a match with Rey Fenix is better TV. Obviously, I think we can all figure that out. It's no knock on Frankie Kazarian. But it did kind of pop me in that regard. Like, he is a guy who's had a strange time in AEW. He has kind of collected standout matches. His match catalog is very strong, maybe better than you think even. But he's really struggled, I think, to get true momentum. Now, does that matter? It depends on what you see him being. Just gonna be honest with you. I just mentioned this with Tony Storm, and this is honestly as simple as wrestling is sometimes. If you see him as a mid card, upper mid card guy, he has probably been used fine. But right or wrong, I never can quite see him that way. I've been emotionally invested for 4 or 5 years now in him being a pushed top guy on TV. It's never quite happened beyond the NXT run, which again, that was a different time for NXT. And I understand the weaknesses there. I get it. I understand he no longer has Zelina Vega by his side. Not that helped him much on WWE main roster TV anyway. But I just think there's a ceiling with this guy that is yet to be truly explored on the national stage, again, beyond NXT. And I hoped AEW was going to get there. I think the guys that followed him into the promotion made that a lot harder. I think he certainly is playing his role well. But I can't help but wonder what could still be for Andrade in this promotion. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that front. And again, let me stress, I'm not saying he's had a bad run, but he has had, so he came in on the Dynamite after Double or Nothing 2021. An infamous debut. And of course, he had Vicky, he had Chavo, he was almost certainly going to have Ric Flair. Plans changed, pal. And they've actually stuck with this presentation, and he's kind of figured it out on his own almost. And like really found a lane for himself as a personality, which is very cool. I like that a lot. But it is hard for me to look at this run and not kind of think, I'm not sure. I feel like he's been maximized, which again, maybe that's not the idea. He's often had kind of a stop-start momentum. The Roosh stuff is really interesting because it's objectively interesting, right? It's fun. It's objectively exciting. Like they're just going to be a cool act immediately. That's clear. And there's a history there, obviously, and there's going to be a chemistry there, so on and so forth. I think anyone who's a fan of either guy can be into this as an idea. But I can't help but fear within my own kind of pursuit of wins and losses here. I can't help but fear that this is in some ways potentially going to put a kind of end point on the potential I just was talking about. And I'm not saying being dramatic and say his career's over or anything like that. What I'm saying is, if the plan is for them to just be a team, then as cool as that is, I can't help but feel like I'd like to see him get one real crack at it as a top guy, you know? And if ever there was a time to do that, then it feels like this is the time, right? Like this, for the reasons we talked about earlier with injuries and stuff. So that really was an interesting element of this to me. The key is here, though, they've set up something with Death Triangle potentially. And there's options for the third guy, and I know that some of that's already been got into, so I'll leave that for another day. But yeah, I would prefer this being the faction that he's the centerpiece of, rather than them just being another tag team. Personally, as good as the team would be, I'm sure. But do you think the booking of the TNT title negatively impacted Andrade over the past months? I feel like him winning the freeway with Darby and Sammy would have helped things. I totally agree. I didn't expect him to win that freeway, but I remember it was a big time discourse when he didn't. He, it didn't seem likely, but he seemed like he had a real shot, and people kind of talked themselves into it, which I'm very guilty of. And instead, when you look at where the belt's gone, right, it's like, well, that seems wasteful. I mean, I have nothing wrong. I like Scorpio Sky, but considering how he's been used as champion, it feels like we could have just done Andrade and been better off for it. The show would have been better for it, and the matches would have been better. So, yeah, I think it has affected him. I think he was a guy who, as soon as he came in, we all kind of penciled him for that belt. It was like a really natural fit for whatever reason. Kind of in a way that like how Miro got it and kind of used it to rebuild his run. I often would hope that would be it for Andrade when he got off to that kind of slow start. Hasn't got there yet. And again, I want to stress, in the role he's in right now, as of this moment, he's very valuable, right? He has great matches, and he gives them exciting TV when he's in there. It just feels like he could be doing more, and he's kind of start-stop in a way that's frustrating for me as a fan. But, I understand there's other factors at play there. I'm not, like, just pointing fingers, but I'm intrigued by it because I think there's a tier for him to kind of break into. And if ever there was a time, it's probably now. So this next few months are going to be very interesting for Andrade. And talking of a guy who, protecting, as much as I think they can be a little too safe sometimes, I would argue they may have actually kind of they may have gone too far the other direction with Andrade. Not to say I'm sure his win-loss record itself is fine, but he certainly has been felt like a guy who loses like big matches. Which again, if he's just a heel mid card, I guess that's his job. But man, it feels like he's been more than that, right? And it'd be big for him if he could win a big match here soon, I think. So there you go. But a good week for Andrade. The Ray Phoenix match, if you haven't seen it, was spectacular. One of their standout Rampage matches for sure, and yeah, an easy watch, absolutely. And that crazy spot with the knees on the post, good lord. And the Kazarian match was nice too. So he had a good week. I see some talk of Ring of Honor in the chat, and with that in mind, last couple of topics here, and then maybe we'll do some questions, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know if you have any. I do about 18 shows now, so maybe not. But we'll see. Ring of Honor appeared on Rampage this week in very funny fashion too. There was a Tully Blanchard vignette which ruled, but it appeared to only exist so that they could do a segment later that would make sense. And it just popped me because it kind of suggested how short notice this was, because you would assume that in an ideal world, you would have aired this one on another show and then, circle back in some way, but it's fine. They did a vignette here, and later they cut back to Gresham and Moriarty, and Moriarty was explaining that he had kind of racked up wins, and it was like, a babyface challenge situation. And I said this on the grim, but it did pop me, I have to say. I love the idea that to get a Ring of Honor shot, you rack up the wins, but not enough to get into the top 5 for an AEW title shot for one of the real belts. You get enough that you're like outside, leader of the second pack there. That must be the key, I think. I reckon Lee's the sixth man. He wanted to wrestle Gresham. Tully stormed in, and they set up a tag match of some kind. I don't necessarily know if it's like him versus the actual team or Cage's in there. I don't know. So you can pencil in for Death Before Dishonor, I believe they're doing. Gresh is going to wrestle Lee or Cage, which, either way is fine. It's not going to do great business or anything, but I actually think he could have a really good match with Brian Cage. So I'm fine with that, but I wanted to bring it up because it was interesting to me the way it was done and the timing of it. With those aforementioned injuries, is this more than pay-per-view build, and is this a case of getting some damn reinforcements on the TV shows? I mean, we'll see where this tag match lands, right? If this is hidden away in the middle of a Rampage, or dare I say on an AEW Dark, then obviously not. If it's promoted and finds itself in like the middle of a Dynamite, they may just need the damn bodies at this point. They're confident in. So that was interesting to me. Jonathan Gresham saying, you talking a big game while I'm the champ here in Ring of Honor was incredible. I like the idea that when they're on TV, it's just Ring of Honor for that minute or so. It's very interesting. I also like that Tully Blanchard completely lied about the fact that these guys have more wins. Not true. They have one win. But yeah, it was a good time. I mean, Lethal on Wednesday had the promo about Joe. We know where that's probably headed, which I assume that'll be the match on Death Before Dishonor. That's like the big match, which, again, your mileage may vary, but it is kind of a big match, relative. FTR will be an interesting part of it. They're going to have to be a big hook for the show. And it appears, another thing that was on Rampage, it appears that maybe we're going to get some Mercedes Serena business, which I have to say, I kind of think it'd be a mistake to do that soon, because this Mercedes Serena team kind of rules, right? It would kind of be a shame to have them immediately fight each other for the Ring of Honor belt, but I don't know. I like this idea. I've seen a lot of people pitching this. Garcia versus you for the pure title. That would give you a really nice connective tissue with the TV. And while the Ring of Honor shows are always going to be kind of niche and for nerds anyway, it still is pretty cool to have something that's like really a direct link from what you're doing on Dynamite, right? Like that's neat. But hopefully we get more info on Ring of Honor this weekend, or tonight, I should say. And yeah, I was interested in the way they showed up on Rampage. Okay, one last thing I'm going to get into here. If you have any AEW related questions, leave them there and I'll answer them for 5 to 10 minutes. If not, we'll get out here a little early. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. It can be about Forbidden Door, obviously. It can be about anything AEW. This try and keep it AEW. I know you're all desperate to know my thoughts on Raw, but we'll get to that another time. Before we get there, though, I do want to give a quick nod. I just mentioned JD. I want a quick nod to Blake Christian, who had honestly, and on the Grin Along, I didn't really pay attention to it, which if you watch the Grin Along, that won't be a surprise to you. I rewatched it today because I saw the rating it had got. And to be totally honest with you guys, that's probably one of the better matches that Dark's hosted, especially since the pandemic when the show completely transformed into something different. Like, because people forget what Dark was. It was very, very different to what it's become with the kind of basically a squash match playlist, which it was not always. So, one of the better matches the show's hosted since then. Blake Christian looked tremendous. I don't necessarily know what the role for him is on an AEW TV product. I'll be honest. I think he's a tremendous wrestler, but I just don't know. Beyond finding him a partner of some kind, as a single, I think it'd be really hard for him to get any kind of traction on the AEW roster. But here's where Ring of Honor becomes interesting, right? If you like a guy like Blake Christian and you're trying to present this product as being kind of more outwardly niche, I don't want to sit here and pretend like AEW is some sort of, like it isn't for wrestling fans, because they do some stuff that's exclusively a pop, you and I. But if you want to kind of do Ring of Honor as the more like hardcore fans thing, Blake Christian's a guy you can easily slot in there and use as like a mid-card, upper mid-card babyface. I know he's in ring, he's capable of more than that, but again, baby steps. I think finding who he is as a TV guy will be interesting, because Ring of Honor will still be a TV product, but I think it'd be a lot easier for him to find his place there than as the 40th babyface on the depth chart for main roster AEW. But he's exciting, man. He's been tremendous since he left WWE, and he's kind of everywhere, right? He's one of those guys who's really took the initiative. So I wanted to mention him because he had a great match on Dark. So bravo. I'm sure we'll be seeing him again pretty soon on one of these mini shows. All right, we have a question from Brucey Beats. Again, folks, if you have any others, feel free to put them in the chat. Brucey Beats says, what will you break if it's Morrissey instead of Claudio? Good question. Probably my foot. I'll probably kick something, To be honest with you, man. So I'm not watching the show live tonight. I'm watching tomorrow. I'm going to watch it with my folks and, maybe get some pizza in or something. Watch some Forbidden Door with the family. And whoever it is, I'll probably pretend that I'm like vaguely excited, just to not kill the vibes, Because like whoever it is, let's be honest, unless it's Dwayne The Rock Johnson, I'm going to be expected to provide some sort of insight into who the fuck this person is. I mean, it's not like any of these people are going to walk out and get a pop in the house and, it's not happening. So with that in mind, if it's W. Morrissey, we're like, oh man, hell of an athlete. I'll do he looks like a star thing. But what will really break Brucey Beats, if you must know, my heart. Let's be real. My heart. What should be the big angle going forward? The big angle. I know this is probably a rib. I'm going to try and answer it because it pops me. The big angle should be it has to be the MJF stuff in some way, which is like the hardest stuff to book, but it kind of has to be, right? It's probably something where MJF points to some sort of conspiracy. He points to some sort of horse shit that's taken place, and everyone dismisses it as false, and it's proven to be true. And then all of the baby faces have to like come to grips with the fact that MJF, while he is a piece of shit, actually was correct about something, So like maybe you do a deal where a referee does like a fast count on FTR match, just for example, and like you have MJF saying that FTR have been paying off referees and doing whole shit like that forever, They've always done stuff like that. They're pieces of shit. And guess what? Tony Khan's in on it. That kind of deal. And obviously, it goes on the radar. The announcers don't sell any of it. And you keep going along with that. And FTR are the team that he's alleging this about. And they don't ever suggest it or interact or anything like that. And then, when CM Punk returns, he proves the conspiracy to be correct, and they basically have the belt hostage. They have those belts hostage, tag belts in the world title, and you basically have to have the baby faces rally at one point you have the Elite basically be the Horsemen in the NWO angle where they're like, yeah, we may be assholes, but we still like, this is our place. You know, we want to protect this place from you pieces of shit. And CM Punk starts talking about retiring the belt, you know. My foot wasn't even injured. You know, maybe do some all shit like that. Something where MJF's proven right, I think is really compelling from a sort of narrative perspective. It's very hard to book MJF stuff. Very, very hard. Because now you're kind of cornered. You're kind of fucked. And I don't really see the way of framing him as a heel that's actually compelling, you know? Now, the one way you could do it is, and someone pitched this in our chat before, but one way you could do it is that he costs Moxley tonight because he wants Tony Khan to lose the world title. You know, he wants it to leave America. Which, like, you know, my mileage varies on that. I really feel like you should just go to Mox and just be steady. But if you want to do it, then I guess that's an angle to do it, right? Like, Max costs AEW their own world title. And Moxley's like, Tony, let him unsuspend him so I can fight him, you know? And then you're doing Moxley MJF on Dynamite. It should do a good rating. And someone else helps MJF and joins him. And they're like, yeah, he's right. We are underpaid. But again, see, here's the problem. So then is the angle that like they're wrong to want more money? I don't know. This is where I struggle with this MJF. But there's something there. If it's someone smarter than I could kind of say, I just don't know what it is. Pop for Morrissey versus Zack Sabre Jr. What did Papa Holbert think of Christian Cage's promo? He pops for how young Christian looks, but he don't really like the promos very much, honestly. He gets very mad. Very, very mad when there's like when there's a segment that's called like this person speaks, he's like, what the fuck? Why is this on a wrestling show? Why would they announce that? Like when they show the graphics, he doesn't like Hangman based exclusively on the fact that when he was champ, he felt like he just cut him ring promo every week and it drove him nuts. So he really didn't think much of it. If I asked him about it now, he would not know what I was talking about, but he popped kind of when it was happening. You know? Thanks, pal. I think we're going to have a good time. It is The Rock. Yes, you can report that. Ringside News. Yeah, this would be fun, right? I kind of alluded to MJF like kind of ruining the night. So you have to be careful with it because, like, how far do you go about actually ruining it? You know? Do you think they played the MJF storyline too early? Personally, I think it was way too early to do this. The longer he's off TV, the more dead this story becomes, in my opinion. It's really difficult because you can look at it both ways, right? Wherever you do the first promo, you need to give it some space afterwards, right? Like you have to, because otherwise it becomes just another angle if he's on it every week. So you need to give yourself some space between promo one and then whatever you do next. Him doing it on the next show, though, while Wardlow just did a stretch job deal with him, I think that was a mistake, honestly, not for AEW as much as for Wardlow. I don't think I did Wardlow any favors, to be honest with you. And look, I'm not pointing fingers at MJF because he did as good a job as you could ever do, but generally I didn't like that as a presentation, kind of cool. So I would say yes, but the real key is, like, honestly, and this is going to sound kind of defeatist, but I believe it. The best way to do this angle takes a level of patience that I don't necessarily know wrestling allows you anymore because the news is so frequent. So much has happened since MJF cut that promo. I mean, seriously, guys, there's been tweets and stuff about, like, look up all the news bulletins that have happened since then and how distant a memory it feels. Like, as you said, the longer he's off TV, the more dead this story becomes. So that is a real challenge of where wrestling's at now. And I don't necessarily know the best way to tackle it. One of my things, whatever angle you're doing, I think one of the things you should do is have MJF in the crowd, but shoot it in a way that is like not pro wrestling or showy at all. Like, you know, when you take the wide shot or you show a fan close up. So, you know, they take like a reaction shot on a fan. Have MJF like way in the background 1 week of that shot. You know, maybe he's flipping off the camera, or maybe he's doing something. Like he's sending a message. And don't refer to it. Go on with the show. Don't cut away and be like, who the hell was that? Just move on to the next shot and camera. And to me, what that would do is that would kind of weaponize the way fans are now in terms of the opposite of what I just said. Yes, they move on quick, but they also see everything. The Fiend Bray Wyatt, all they had to do was throw up a blue light, and they was like, oh my God, they're going to do, God only knows what. I think it'd be really cool if you just did stuff like that. And when I'm saying back, I mean like way in the distance, you could kind of see Max, and people would be on Twitter being like, is this actually him or whatever, And then he kind of gets something more obvious, and then you shoot the big angle where it's kind of like he's looming large without being responded to, basically. And then he does something that ruins the whole show for everyone. They kind of tries to hijack the show. So again, guys, I'm really talking this out on the air because I don't know the answer, but it just intrigues me. Big angle being MJF calling out Punk, and the only person to be on his side is Eddie. That would be great, right? That would be good stuff. That would be interesting. Listen, here's don't do a work shoot in 2022. It's not my favorite thing, I have to be honest. But Big Dave, my God, Batista, huh? I'm just messing. Talked about the idea of keeping Kenny, MJF, and Punk off TV until August, so the ratings grow right when the negotiations are happening. I hate ratings talk, but that would go with how Tony thinks. Yeah, that's interesting. Yes, all that's very logical, but you also would probably want to just get them moving in the right direction, right? This week was a lot better, but that one a couple weeks ago was kind of rough. It's kind of scary. So yes, maybe you could use one of those guys, but we'll see. Have you ever made Papa Hole but watched NXT 2.0? Absolutely not. No Fed. I think Fed would drive him nuts, to be honest with you. I think you can discredit I don't think you can discredit AEW for doing the work shoot, because how the hell would they know the Vince news would break like the same week? Yeah, no, to be clear, I'm not even discredit. I'm just saying basically what I'm getting at is that not the Vince story necessarily, but the way people move now is so quick. It's very difficult to do. I just think it's so far away from his contract expiring. How do they stretch this out for the next 16 months? That's the other part of it. And that part's always been a headache, even when it was a real story. Paul says, wouldn't even need to show him on TV. People in the crowd would put it on Twitter. I agree with that. But the one benefit of showing him on TV would be you would hope that people that aren't as online as you or I would be like, wait, was that MJF? And then they would get involved in that discussion and type it in. So what you would get by doing it on TV is basically you would be telling the fan who doesn't read every single story, because there are those fans. I know people that didn't know the MJF stuff was real or not. Well, it sounds silly to me because he did a fucking in-ring promo, but they was like, is it real? You would basically be giving those fans like an olive branch to get involved in that discourse, right? Like the idea they're in on something they shouldn't be. I swear I saw him, like that kind of deal. But initially you could have him just in the crowd for sure. I just think it'd be interesting to do it that way. Give Bert the pencil. This is probably not the show to say that on, but I appreciate you. All right. Let's wrap this up here. I hope you've enjoyed this, folks. I like this format a lot more than just doing like a, minute 1 to minute 120 review. It's kind of exhausting for me to do it that way. I find it's a lot more fun. We can talk about topics that are actually kind of interesting. And hopefully as we go, we get some kind of different wrinkles. Always obviously happy to answer questions and such. Again, this is every Sunday now. I know we didn't do last Sunday, but I was on holiday. So every Sunday moving forward, it will be around 2, 3, 4 Eastern time. Stay locked into our Twitter at Late Night Grin or mine at Joe Holbert. At Joe Holbert. My name's Joe, right? Not Joe. Yes, I will be doing this show every Sunday until an AEW. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed Forbidden Door. Very exciting. Forbidden Door is on. Hope you have a lot of fun. I hope we all enjoy Claudio together. If it isn't Claudio, this will never happen again. This show will never happen again. There will never be another show again, ever, about anything. That's just a joke. Please, no, that's a joke. When it's the Fiend Bray Wyatt, I'll do a review, I promise. Speaking of such, Forbidden Door review tomorrow night, around 5, 6 Eastern, I'd say, on Twitch. Again, at Late Night Grins, where you get the update on when necessarily exactly that will be. But I will review it tomorrow. Probably just me. Shoot may hop on, I'm not sure. But probably just me. So come back here tomorrow and find out what I thought of the show. Then Tuesday, we're doing, on Twitch, we're doing a ranking of all of the Money in the Bank winners. Wine bottle edition kind of deal, as Bob's friends at the Ringer would say. Where basically that version of the wrestler you rank, so where does a 20 a 2005 Edge stack up to a 2007 Mr. Kennedy. Well, you'll find out on Tuesday, folks. It'll be a lot of fun. Wednesday, I think it's just the Burt behind the paywall. Thursday, we may go live after Dynamite impromptu. Sometimes I want to do that just to kind of give you guys some immediate response. Thursday, we're doing Grin Grappler, Terry Funk. Friday, we're doing a Money in the Bank prediction show. And then back here for Fleet Week on Sunday. So, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this. I certainly have. If you're watching on YouTube, give us one of those thumbs up gimmicks, subscribe, so on and so forth. You can become a patron at latenightgrin.com. Just $1 gets you everything. There are no tiers. $1 gets you everything you need. The Burt from Tuesday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. The Late Night Grin itself, a 3 to 4 hour podcast every Friday night after Rampage. And a bunch more. A lot of grin alongs. We watch wrestling together, so on and so forth. It's a pretty good deal for just $1. So keep grinning. Enjoy Forbidden Door. And in the meantime, enjoy this outro. Oh, wow.